Thank you, Zanuck and Riley. That was awesome. Wow, I've missed that. I've missed having hula. And we at Unity in Marin, we have a hula dancer and singer, and that was such a beautiful experience. And here it's so beautiful to hear that call of Hawaii. And certainly I heard that call of Hawaii and the call of Unity Church of Hawaii, so it's good to be here with you all. And those who haven't met me yet, I'm Reverend Tim Lytle, the senior minister here. So we welcome our online community, and we welcome all of you who are here in person. And if we haven't met yet, let's please meet at the end of this service. So this is our Aloha service. And I remember at Unity in Marin asking, what does aloha mean? And some people said, I think that's when people in Hawaii say hello or goodbye. And it can mean that, but actually if all you mean is hello or goodbye, maybe it's better to just say hello or goodbye, because aloha has so much more meaning to it than that. Aloha is much more than a word. It is a way of living. So today I'm talking about living aloha. It's a way of being. And, looking at my own life, and you probably do this as well, it's good to check to see, am I living aloha in my life? Now, I love this story that I have heard, and I went online and heard Moe Keale, who was a singer and musician and the uncle of Iz, if you're familiar with Iz, and a big influence on the life of Iz. And Moe was influenced by Palahi Paki. Some of you have heard of Palahi Paki, right? Great Hawaiian teacher who had been in tourism and realty and so forth, and went to a man who was called Tutu, and she could hear Tutu chanting. And so she knocked at the door. She wanted to visit with this man to get some ideas of things to tell tourists when she was giving tours here in Hawaii. She wanted to get a little more historical background and get a little more information. And when she came into the house, Tutu said, "Welcome, I've been waiting for you." She had never met this man before. She didn't know what this was all about. And Tutu went on to say to her, "Would you like to receive all that I have and all that I am?" Now, how would you respond if you met someone for the first time and they asked you that question? She didn't know who this man was, and she didn't know how to respond. She responded, "No." Tutu placed his hand on her head, and it felt like electricity going through her entire body, through her entire being. And in that moment, she received the knowledge of the ancients. She received the secret ancient knowledge of Hawaii. And what is called here mana, spiritual energy, this spiritual power, just in that one placing of the hand. And that changed her life. She became a person here on the islands that would instruct others about the ways of aloha, about the ways of these islands. Now I'm going to divert from the story just a little bit to go to my own story and then go back to her. I had Hawaiian miles saved up. And I hadn't any plans of applying for the position of senior minister here. there had been, I think it was about a 14-month search. And people had found out that I was going to be here. I had let Reverend Johanna know. Thank you, Reverend Johanna. She leaked it out to the leadership team. And they contacted me and said, would you like to come here and speak? And when you're here in November, I was like, sure, I'd love to do that, but only on the condition that I will not be in the way of the ministerial search. Only if I'm not interfering in the direction that you're going. I only want to be there to support this community. They said, that's why we're asking you. Would you come and speak when you're here on island? I said, yes, of course, I'd love to do that. When we got here on Oahu, it just hit me so hard that this is home. And I knew in my heart that it was home, but I had been kind of fighting that. And I knew when I was here, it's like, oh my goodness. And it was the first time in years and years that I felt really at home. And then when I came here to the church to speak, it was a great service. All went really well, great energy. And I had this speech rehearsed, and people at Unity in Marin, I love you, and you've heard this, and some of you have heard this. But I had this speech prepared that I was going to, if anyone said, do you want to come back? Do you want to think about it? I wanted to tell them of how wonderful it was going at Unity in Marin. I wanted to tell them of how the education program is ramping up, how it's in a better financial position than it had been in 20 years, that there's great energy, that we went from about $50 a month to $12,000 a month watching online, that we went, I wanted to go through all this, and someone here asked me, Reverend Tim, would you like to come back? And my story would not come up. Because what was rising up in me was that calling from my heart. And I won't use the language that came to my mind at that moment, but it was like, oh shoot. Now what do I do? And they leaned forward and they said, Reverend Tim, would you like to come back? I still couldn't speak. I was speechless. They said, would you be willing to pray about it, to think about it? I was standing right here. And I said, I'd be willing to pray about it. And they began to skip and jump across the stage. And I thought, I've never had anyone so happy about me praying about something. What was calling to me was that deep sense of spirit, knowing what was mine to do and knowing where home is. And part of being home, and some people have asked me, how do you know it's home? It's hard to describe, and I try to describe various things, but one of the things certainly is the spirit of Aloha. And it's in this church, it's in this community, it's on these islands. And to go back to Pilahi, when she was talking with Tutu, she went home, and one morning she woke up, and in her own handwriting, she had written out a meaning for aloha with each letter of aloha. She did not remember writing it, and she found it, and it was in her own handwriting. And she contacted Tutu, and she said, what's going on here? And he said, it has been revealed to you the secret of Hawaii. You need to share this secret with the world, because the world will turn to Hawaii to find out how to have world peace. Do you recognize that that is the legacy that we hold here? That is no small thing. That's what Aloha is about. It's not just a passive hello or goodbye. The spirit of Aloha and living Aloha is the way to world peace. That's big stuff. We have a message to share with the whole world. Some of you have heard this. So A stands for akahai, which means kindness. L stands for lokahi, which is also at the bottom of our stained glass up here, which means unity. O stands for olu olu, which means agreeable. H stands for ha'a ha'a, meaning humility. That is, being grounded and not putting yourself above others. A stands for aho nui, meaning patience. And of course, you've probably heard that alo means to share, to be in the present. And ha means breath or spirit. So aloha means we are sharing one spirit. We are sharing one presence. And as Tutu explained to Palahi, that aloha originally meant that all of us have that divine presence and that divine spirit in us. All of us are sharing that one presence, that one power. Doesn't that sound like unity? Doesn't that sound like harmony, which Cindy was sharing with us about today? It's about all of us being connected, that when one person, Tutu went on to explain, when one is in pain, we feel that pain. When one is in joy, we feel that joy. We are all interconnected. That is what aloha is. So when you are saying aloha to somebody, you are saying, I see the divine in you. When you're saying aloha to somebody, you're saying, you and I are always connected. When you say aloha to someone, you're saying, what happens in your life is happening in my life. And when we live from that presence, we cannot look at others the same. Again, when I see people who are homeless, I'm seeing God sitting there holding their hand out. Now, I gave an assignment last week. Who remembers the assignment? Just raise your hand. No shame about this. Okay. So I'll repeat the assignment. So the assignment, and it's for 2 weeks, so it's great. We're in the middle of it. So you didn't lose anything. The assignment is to look, our mission statement, centered in God, we transform lives. Okay, that's the first part. So the first part of the assignment is look for ways in which your life is being transformed. How would you quantify that? Are you getting a wider worldview? Are you becoming less prejudiced and more open to others? Are you seeing others as the face of God? How do you quantify transformation? That's why in our services sometimes we have these transformation stories, because that inspires the rest of us to go into transformation. So look for evidence in other people's lives and in your own life of being transformed. But here's the second part, and that is to make a positive difference in our world. Because we're claiming this, like it's not like just the world, but our world. Making a positive difference in our world. So look for examples of where people are making a positive difference in our world, including yourself. What I've noticed is, as I become more intentional about it, because where our attention goes, energy flows. As I am giving attention to those positive things that people are doing in the world, I recognize more and more, oh, this is a beautiful world. I recognize there is aloha going on in our world. One of the many things that we're dealing with but just things you need to do when you move from the mainland to here, is to get a new bank. Because the banks that are on the mainland are not here. And the banks that are here are not on the mainland. So I went to the bank that we used to be with. And, oh, thank you, Ogalucia. See, there's an example of being a positive difference in the world. Thank you. These are blowing away. It's all right. And so I went to the bank that we banked at before. And they were always so nice and so kind. And I thought, well, let me go back there. And this woman named Gwen helped me. And Gwen didn't just see me as a customer. Gwen saw me fully as a person. She engaged in conversation with me. She wanted to know about me. She wanted to know about our move here. And she was genuinely interested. She was extremely helpful with what I went to the bank to do. Very competent. But it went beyond that. We struck up such a rapport, and I would call this aloha. We struck up such a rapport that she shared with me things going on in her own life, in her family, that I could hold in prayer. And Gwen, you're probably not watching, but you might be because you asked about where the church is and when the service time is. And I've been holding that in my prayers. That's aloha. It's making a positive difference in our world, and any one of us can do it. When I first showed up here and I came on campus, Linda Knox and Thomas Gallagher and some others, Chris and some others were out here putting out that beautiful red mulch that's out here in the garden area. And this is how Linda greeted me. Linda said, "What are you doing here? Are you supposed to be here?" I said, "Well, to my knowledge, I've been called here as a senior minister. I think I'm in the right place." But that isn't what she meant. They were preparing that garden as a surprise for me, and that's why she had kind of, wanted to keep me away, but the surprise was up. Anyway, so thank you. Making a positive difference in our world. People who are ushering here, people who volunteer out in the community. You are sharing aloha, and this world needs aloha. Much of the world is governed by a sense of how can I get what I want and how can I step on someone else in order to get it. That's not aloha. And I need to do self-evaluation once in a while. You know, we moved from the Bay Area in California, right? Unity and Marin, I'm not blaming California, but I'm very, very adaptable. Very adaptable, including in my driving habits. So driving in Northern California in the Bay Area, 80 miles an hour is just kind of standard. And, there's lots of horn honking, and there's lots of pulling right in front of other people, and there's lots of getting right on the back bumper of other people, and there's lots of that. If you're ever in the Bay Area and you run out of gas, just put it in neutral. They'll push you wherever you need to go. I mean it all in love, right? And so I find myself once in a while getting in a hurry. It's like, ooh, I need to get to the church, and I get in the car and it's feeling so good driving down the Poly, and I'm just having a great time. And I'm signaling, that's how people in California knew I wasn't from California. I signal. You know that, Sherry, right? Anyway, so I need to check myself once in a while, because sometimes I can get aggressive. Sometimes I can get a little pushy. Sometimes I can get just a little bit of attitude. I know, right? I'm such a spiritual person, but sometimes I get an attitude. Does anyone else here ever get an attitude? Do you sometimes get impatient with other people? Sometimes do you just want to wake up to someone else? Because we're human beings, right? We have some of that in us. But what I've noticed in nature and in human beings is that we're far more geared for community, for collaboration, for working together than we are for competition. We do much better when we work together. And that's one of the things we're studying in our integral ministry program, that ministry goes much better when we're all working together rather than if we're trying to force something on somebody, right? That's aloha. That's being a beneficial difference and presence in our world. You know what aloha is. It's in your heart. It's been there all along. You don't have to go somewhere and find it. You already have aloha in you. It's just wanting to come out. I was at Down to Earth eating outside in Kailua, and there was this little child, I would guess about 1 year old. I'd be eating and I'd look up and this child would just be staring at me. And I'd smile and I'd go back to eating. And the child's still staring at me. And so I wave and the child waves and the parents are laughing and still staring at me. And I'm thinking, wow. And I watch this child interact and just the spirit of aloha. And so, it kind of started up an interaction between on her part, nonverbal, but interaction between the child and myself and the parents and myself, and getting to know more about each other. And before they left, and I know this is a Hawaii tradition, but it really touched me. They said, "You want to wave goodbye to Uncle?" I thought, that's aloha. We're all family. We're all one. We're all interconnected. Even though it's the first time we met, they knew that we were one family. They knew that we're one ohana. They knew that we are connected. When we treat each other and treat others out there as being the presence of God, when we treat others out there as ourselves. I had a rabbi mentor for 5.5 years. I was in the Judaic College of Judaism, and they studied Kabbalah and Torah, and the rabbi, quoting from Leviticus 19:18, "Hi, aloha, thank you." Special guest appearance. And Another one's here. Oh, welcome. Aloha. So I forgot what I was saying. What was I saying? The Torah. So my rabbi mentor, quoting from Leviticus 19:18, and also what Jesus was saying, love your neighbor as yourself. And my rabbi mentor said, the reason they said to love your neighbor as yourself is that your neighbor is yourself. When we approach the world that way, we are coming from the place of aloha. So I invite you to just take a deep breath. If you wish, close your eyes, or you can relax your gaze. We breathe into this moment to just be aloha, to be the presence of aloha, to share that one spirit, that one breath, knowing we are interconnected, knowing we are one. That is aloha. And this is the secret to world peace. And we have it right here. Right inside of you, that presence of aloha, that presence of God is there. Anywhere you are, God is. And you take that with you wherever you go to be a positive difference in our world. We tune into that spirit of aloha. We allow that presence of aloha to rise up within us and be aloha as we go into a minute of silence. And as we come out of this time of meditation, we give thanks for this presence of aloha, knowing that this is a way that we bring heaven to earth as it is in heaven.